Hello, and welcome to Game Domain. In today's installment of our Top 10 series, we'll be looking at the top 10 RPGs of 2017. It's been a good year for games in general, but RPGs had an especially great year with new installments of classic franchises and entirely new and novel games. Ranking all of these was tough, as it felt like so many could have taken the top spot, but we took a crack at it. Let's dive in. Starting off our list is Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect would probably be higher up on this list if the ancestor hadn't set the bar so high. I feel almost bad that it got the negative criticism that it did, because it is still a deep, beautiful game if you don't look at the facial animations, with satisfying combat. It cleverly avoids the typical sequel curse by having the story take place in an entirely different galaxy, but it never quite fleshes out the new galaxy like the first three Mass Effects games did to our very own Milky Way. While it doesn't really live up to the original series' writing and depth, it takes combat and movement in an exciting new directions with punchier, more fast-paced feel to each fight. All told, Andromeda got a lot of criticism, some fair and some not, but it still found its way onto our top 10 lists for all the things it did right. Next up at number 9, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Mario plus Rabbids is a very interesting mashup. The classically safe, beloved Mario characters are joined by the slightly racier humor of the Rabbids as the latter invades the Mushroom Kingdom. And what happens when you mix Mario and the Rabbids? Naturally, you get a turn-based tactical game that draws a pretty easy comparison to XCOM. Mario and his normal companions, along with several counterparts from the Rabbids universe, join together to fight their way through levels of enemies. It's a silly game really, with good mechanics and plenty of adorable charm to go around, but it can be wickedly difficult at times. It doesn't offer a lot of replay value. That being said, it's still a fun, fairly long game that owns its far-fetched plot with the fun and grace you've come to expect from Mario. At number 8, Nier Automata. Nier's kind of a weird game. Depending on who you ask and what stood out to them the most, they might tell you it's more hack and slash or more run and gun. To me, the best comparison for combat was Metal Gear Solid Revengeance, but there was still more aspects to it, and I've heard Bayonetta brought up as well. It feels familiar, but is definitely unique. The story. Humans escape Earth due to an alien invasion and send androids to fight for them. Is a bit slow at times and lacks certain depth of character, but the mechanics are so good and the fights are so satisfying, it still will pull you in. Number 7 brings us Nioh, a samurai tale that is often compared to Dark Souls, but goes beyond the typical copycat feel to create its own enticing world. Each aspect of Nioh is carefully crafted, from the feel of its setting to the diverse enemies and bosses that make very clever uses of their environment. It does a good job of mixing historically accurate exposition and period-specific design with subtle humor and really solid writing. When I first started digging into Nioh, I feared it would be just another vaguely samurai-based game, but was pleasantly surprised to see how much care was taken into every aspect of the game, and if you haven't played it already, I think you will be too. Another Space Odyssey sequel, Destiny 2, takes the 6th spot on our rankings. Destiny was a big game, and it drew a fair amount of criticism for its buggy nature at first, but as it patched the bugs, it really hit its stride and delivered a fun game full of satisfying combat. Destiny 2 picks up the banner and runs from there. Not only did it have a more slick launch, it provides a deep, involved, interesting story to make better use of the great gameplay and aesthetics. There are some things the developers did differently, such as simplifying the classes and making combat focus a bit more on team-based strategy than a everyone for themselves feel. And it makes some classes feel less useful, but I didn't really have a problem with it. I really enjoyed the first Destiny, but I think I like 2 even better. It has a deeper story, while still providing the social gameplay and loot hunting we love, with the cinematic soundtrack to set the mood. Shadow of War rides into number 5. I loved Shadow of Mordor, and despite Shadow of War's kind of vanilla title and microtransactions, I was very excited to dig into this game. We were promised a bigger and more complex game than its predecessor, and I can happily say the developers delivered. The wonderfully effective Nemesis system returns in this game, as well as other aspects of the first game, such as capturing beasts to ride, gathering collectibles, and so on. There are 5 very distinct regions in this game, and much like Mordor, I always felt like I was stumbling into orcs going about their day-to-day lives. It feels like a living world, and I adore it. However, also like the first game, the sheer size and length of the game means that sometimes novel gameplay mechanics can become routine and get a bit tiring. If you played the first game, you know that this still isn't a big problem. The other knock Shadow of War takes is that it does get a little loosey-goosey with the respected and adored Tolkien lore. If you could turn a blind eye to that and just enjoy the ride, you'll love Shadow of War. Number 4 is Divinity Original Sin 2. A tale of sorcerers who are persecuted for their powers, fighting to survive in a world that fears them for their powers. If you notice my love for games such as Mass Effect, you won't be surprised to learn that I loved how deep the story got with this game. Side quests often felt like they were as important as the main quest, and I was surprised by just how many options there were for conversations, and all of them are voice acted. Unlike Mass Effect, where you can often tackle all the quests you're faced with, your choices often affect the outcomes in Divinity, and it will likely require multiple playthroughs to see all the possible outcomes. The choices you make have real consequences in this game, and it lends a real weight to the story. Original Sin 2 creates a beautiful world that is deserving of the praise it's been getting. Number 3 is Persona 5. Now, I never played any of the Persona games, so I was totally unprepared for the unique and perfectly executed style of this JRPG. I've learned now that the basic story is similar to past games, in that you're a typical high school student by day and saving the world by night by invading the dungeons that are the corrupted minds of adults to change them, like a more powerful take on Inception. The choices you make in your day-to-day life, exploring and simply living in a colorful and vivid Tokyo, such as whether to spend time being social or getting a part-time job, affect your nightlife as a hero by raising your stats or giving you more money to buy better weapons. To cover so much day-to-day life as a high school student and invading minds by night, without any glaring shortcomings, made focusing on the totally unique and consistent style of the game even easier. Number 2 is Zero. That is Horizon Zero Dawn. This was a phenomenal open world game that made me want to explore all the gorgeous environments. But what really impressed me was that there was really an enticing story to fill this space. The lore was similar to other fantastic RPG games in the way it made me want to solve the mystery that runs central to the plot. The characters had a depth to them, and exploring their stories outside the main campaign didn't often feel like a chore, besides the fetch quests. Of course, all of this is secondary to the game's most famous feature, the giant robot creatures you hunt and fight. The combat is justifiably the main draw, as it is both satisfying and thrilling. The game gives you what you need to feel like you're in control, without feeling like you're ever safe. I loved my journey through the world of Horizon Zero Dawn, and I would recommend it to anyone who loves to explore epic worlds full of lore and monsters. And number 1 is Breath of the Wild. Zelda is justifiably considered something like a founding father of action RPGs, and their most recent installment, in my opinion, raises the bar the franchise helped set. I was only playing it for a few hours when I realized what the game felt like to me, a charming Zelda and Shadow of War crossover, which is a very flattering comparison in my world. The world feels truly open, not just a big space through which you can wander between missions, and the way you can interact with the environment seemed limitless. As a friend put it, I was amazed at how many ways I tried to mess with the game, only to have it work out. I have not been as big a fan of Zelda games as many others, but Breath of the Wild really got its hooks into me through its beautifully painted landscapes and amazing mechanics. As I said when I started, it was hard to pick just one top game, and any of the top 4, in my mind, would be fair fits for the number 1 spot. In a year with so many great games, it could be hard to realize the brilliance of any one game. So help us out. Which game did we miss? Which games clearly deserve to be higher or lower? What were your favorite features of this year's RPGs? We look forward to hearing from you. As always, thanks for watching Game Domain.